we now start the DevOps tracks with a name that is pretty well known in the open source community, which is Proxmox. And naturally, the subject is backup. It's not going to be the only backup-related session. So, Christian, the stage is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Thank you for having me. So today I will talk about the Proxmox backup server, which is a backup solution for your data center. And since I was not sure how familiar you are with Proxmox as a company, I wanted to talk a few seconds about the company itself. So Proxmox has been around since 2005. We have the headquarters located in Vienna, Austria. It is a privately owned company with no venture capital involved, and all of our products are open source. So we license everything under the AGPL version 3. We have no feature gating, and we are very proud of a very active and strong community. So the business model of Proxmox Server Solutions is subscription-based, which means you buy a subscription and get access to the enterprise repository and also to support by submitting support tickets. We also provide trainings to get you an in-depth knowledge of our software products, and we also have a strong and worldwide partner network, which also provide trainings and support. We currently offer 4 software solutions. So we have the Proxmox Mail Gateway for email security, the Proxmox Virtual Environment, which is a hypervisor based on QEMU, KVM, and Linux container guests. Then we have the Proxmox Backup Server, which will be covered in this talk, and we provide also the Proxmox Offline Mirror, which is an offline repository for air-gapped hosts. So let's dive directly into the Proxmox Backup Server. So the backups in the Proxmox Backup Server are not stored as large archives, but rather are not stored in large archives, but rather in a content addressable storage. So this means that all your data is chunked up into millions of small files, which can be referenced by their contents cryptographic hash function. So the data is stored within these chunks, and the actual backup snapshots can then reference these chunks logically. So each, for example, this archive here contains these logical chunks, and the advantage of this approach is that multiple indexes, multiple backups can reference the same data chunks if the data is unchanged, making it really efficient for the duplication. So the snapshots themselves, that's the wrong button. So the snapshots themselves are organized into groups. So for example, you have groups based on your virtual hosts or containers, or also on if you perform backups of Linux machines, so you have the host names. All of these can then, again, be organized logically into namespaces. So, for example, if you have a Proxmox cluster, this could be a cluster or an organizational name, users, so whatever you like. How does backup work now? Let's take the example of backup for a virtual machine. So we have a virtual machine running on the Proxmox hypervisor and a virtual or a block device attached to this virtual machine. The Proxmox backup client can then read the blocks of fixed size and calculate the cryptographic digest of these chunks. These chunks are then uploaded to the Proxmox backup server via the API and inserted into the chunk store and appended to the index file. And in order to read and calculate this data, this of course takes time. So we have an optimization. So if you want to perform a backup of a virtual machine which has been backed up before, we, during guest I/O, we track which blocks of the virtual block device have changed, and we only calculate the new digests of these changed blocks and only upload those. On the server side, we duplicate the previous snapshot and only overwrite the changed data blocks, thereby being really fast in creating incremental backups, whereas the actual backups themselves are fully self-contained. So for Linux containers and host backups, we have to walk the file system tree recursively, and we encode the entries encountered in the file system in the Proxmox archive, which is optimized for deduplication. We create then variable size chunk, again to optimize the duplication, and once again calculate the digests and upload these new chunks or re-index already known chunks. So this looks like this. So we have the Proxmox archive byte stream incoming. The rolling window hasher then chunks this data up into variable size chunks. So if files changed, we can adapt the chunks accordingly. We calculate once again the digest of the data chunk, compare if we can load the previous snapshot from the server, so check for already known chunks and only upload or index the chunks which are new to this particular snapshot. Again, the downside, if you have to reread and rechunk all the data in order to calculate the digest, this can be slow. So we introduced a new mode for Linux container and host backups in order to speed up the process by splitting the metadata and the payload data into two separate archive streams, so we can compare the metadata and only rechunk payload data which for files which actually have been changed, while we reuse the chunks from the other one. So this now looks like this. We have the Pixar metadata byte stream, which is completely rechunked, whereas for the payload byte stream, we take the reference from the previous snapshot, and we can compare for metadata for files which have not been changed. We can simply reuse chunks from the previous snapshot, whereas for changed data, we rechunk and re-upload again to the server. So inserting new chunks and appending to the index file. In order to create offsite backups, Proxmox Backup Server also provides sync jobs, so you can synchronize all of your backup snapshots from one local Proxmox Backup Server instance to a remote backup server instance. And you can do this in a scheduled manner. So the intuitive web interface allows you to create schedules with a cron tab-like syntax, where you can define which backups you want to synchronize to your offsite location, for example, for disaster recovery. And an upcoming new feature in a future version will be that up until now it was only possible to pull the contents from a remote backup server to your local backup server. In an upcoming version, we implement also the push support for this. Of course, if you take a lot of regular scheduled backups, after some time your storage space will fill up. So you want to get rid of unused backups. So Proxmox Backup Server also provides prune and garbage collection features. So a prune can be scheduled in order to delete the index files or the metadata files related to the backups by defining retention periods. So you define how long your backups should be kept on your data store, and after this schedule expires, they get removed, the index file gets removed from your backups. Since this can get really messy with a lot of backups, we also provide a simulator where you can insert your backup job schedule and your retention settings, and this will then calculate and show you which backup snapshots will be kept and which one will be deleted. Important to note here, so the prune only deletes the metadata information, so not the actual data stored in the chunks. To actually clean up this space, you will have to also use garbage collection. So garbage collection is a process which works in 2 steps. In the first phase, we iterate over all the known index files, and for each of the indexed chunks, we mark them by updating their access time on the file system. And only in a second phase, we then remove the chunks which have an access time which is older than a grace period of we have 24 hours and 5 minutes because of the modern Linux file system typically are mounted with a rela time option, so the A time is not updated immediately, but only after the last change was more than 24 hours ago. So therefore this grace period. And all the snapshots or all the chunks which were still or are still indexed within one of the index files are therefore kept, whereas the chunks which have not been accessed by the garbage collection can safely be removed. I also wanted to mention that we have fully integrated tape backup support, so you have an easy way for long-term and offsite storage as well. We support tapes with LTO5 or newer. Also LTO4 tapes can work with the latest firmware. And we also fully support libraries, tape libraries and loaders, and use our Proxmox specific LTO implementation. And with this, I'm already at the end, and I'm happy to take some questions. Thank you.
If there are no questions from the audience, I'm going to... Oh, there is one.
Thank you. Do you have some write once, read many support?
In what respect?
In using software or hardware solution, so you can basically have a copy that is only readable and not corruptible by subsequent. Right.
Well, for data integrity, we also, which I did not cover, so we have some verification jobs going on. So maybe I can show based on, no, the slides are not available anymore. Yeah, thank you. So similar to the garbage collection, we also have a verified job which can iterate all the chunks in the data store and calculate once again their cryptographic hash, so we can be sure that the content stored within these chunks is actually what the digest tells me. No? And maybe regarding your read once or write once, read many question. So we also offered a mode to create protected snapshots which cannot be pruned from the server. So you can set a flag, and by this the garbage collection and the prune, or especially the prune jobs, will ignore those snapshots and keep them for longer period of time, or forever in principle.
It seems there are no more questions. I have one. You mentioned that you have an enterprise service that you offer to to clients that want to purchase your services and not only use the software as it is. Can you give a couple of elements of the services you actually provide?
Yeah, so the services are actually what I showed before. So we do provide access to the enterprise repository. So if you have a subscription, you will get a key which you can then install on your server, and with this you can access the enterprise repository, which contains all the well-tested and stable software, and of course you also get the access to our support in case you have problems with the product or in general with the setup. We are happy to help.